All right, so I feel like I was so wrong about the Clippers, but at the same time, so right about the Clippers, and we'll get into that and what I mean by that. But here's what's happening. Chris Paul, who is arguably the greatest Clipper of all time, if not number one, number two behind Bob McAdoo, is being sent home. Maybe the GOAT of your franchise, one of the greatest players in NBA history, is being sent home during his farewell tour. Extremely, extremely disrespectful. Now, we don't know exactly what happened. Chris Paul has been known to do some wild things. Chris Paul has been known to, punch people below the belt, literally. So we don't know what happened in that locker room, but apparently Chris Paul was clashing with the coaches and players about being accountable, which is where I feel like I was right about this Clippers team. At the beginning of the year, I was wrong because I felt like they had the talent of a championship team, but I said verbatim, the biggest weakness on this team is leadership. I said Chris Paul would be the leader of the team, but he's not going to play enough. I said that at the beginning of the year. No, I did not think it would go this poorly, but James Harden is a chill guy. He's chilling, right? He doesn't want to be losing, but he's not stressing the way Chris Paul's probably stressing. Kawhi Leonard doesn't care. Kawhi's chilling, and then Ty Lue is just a chill guy. And here's a clip from DeMarcus Cousins talking about Ty Lue, and this might be what's going on.
Because you brought up the Clippers,
Yeah.
and I also played for Ty Lue.
Yeah.
And it would be games where we would come in where we play like complete
And you needed
crap.
something.
And it's, all right, see y'all tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
It's no urgency. And we look at how these Clippers teams is playing out, and it's getting worse and worse by the year. And I love Ty Lue.
Yeah.
I think he's an incredible X and O guy. But sometimes
let me ask you this.
sometimes that laid back approach carries over into the team,
Right.
and then you have a laid back team.
Now, you can take whatever you want to take from that. I don't feel like Boogie would be saying that for no reason. I believe that's the truth. I believe that's why we see the Clippers go down 0-2 in series, and we're like, man, Ty Lue's such a great coach, how he comes back. But where's the urgency and intensity from game one? Now, DeMarcus Cousins will also probably tell you that Rondo's a better point guard than Chris Paul all time. So whatever you want to take from that, take from that. But Ty Lue is not a rah-rah guy. He's not a let's rally the troops guy. Apparently, only that one time where he told LeBron to stop acting like a you-know-what. And Chris Paul is intense, so much so that we've seen this with James Harden already in Houston. James Harden got sick of Chris Paul, even though those were the best teams James Harden was ever on. Arguably better than the OKC team. So it's not surprising that Chris Paul would wear out his welcome. It is shocking that you would send home arguably the GOAT of your franchise, the guy that made you relevant in the LA market. Now, Blake Griffin did a lot for that, but Chris Paul was that guy. And the fact that you don't even give him the respect or decency of, just playing it out, trading him, trying to figure out a different scenario that doesn't look this bad. And truthfully, if it's this bad, fire Ty Lue, right? I'm not saying just because of Chris Paul, but just fire Ty Lue. What are you doing here? It's a very, very bad look, and the Clippers had done such a good job of building up their reputation, starting with Chris Paul all the way through the Kawhi Leonard era. It's been a disappointment, but if you look at the Clippers every single year, they put great rosters around Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. Those guys just kept getting hurt. For all the jokes about the Clippers, they had kind of become a great organization. They had kind of become a symbol for stability. The last 15 years, who has the most wins in the NBA? It's the Warriors, then the Clippers, then OKC, then the Celtics, then the Miami Heat. Those are like the great ran organizations. Then it's the Nuggets and the Spurs. The Clippers have been a model franchise for building a good, competent team every single year. They went from a joke to one of the best franchises in the NBA, in large part due to Chris Paul. And I wasn't really a big Chris Paul fan growing up, but the older I've gotten, the more I've, grown to love Chris Paul as a player. And I've only been to a couple NBA games in real life. And one of them was Chris Paul versus Derrick Rose, Derrick Rose's MVP year. And at the moment, I was really only there for Derrick Rose. Derrick Rose was my guy. I had the Derrick Rose skull candies. I was really there to see Derrick Rose, but I'm so glad I got to see Chris Paul in his prime against Derrick Rose, which wasn't supposed to be the prime for Derrick Rose, but ended up being prime Derrick Rose. I'm really, when you think about it, how many people can say they've seen MVP Derrick Rose? So I'm always going to cherish that moment, but I just bring it up because this is Chris Paul's farewell tour. Again, he's the GOAT of your franchise, and you're sending him home for Ty Lue because he was disagreeing with Ty Lue. I don't get that. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the Clippers are about to go on some crazy run. They are 5-16. They are 5-16, But to me, this is an indication of, yeah, it's over. We don't really care. This guy wants it too bad. We're 5-16. We're just chilling, right? I think if they were all motivated to turn this around, this wouldn't be a discussion. I think these guys are cool. They're getting their checks. They're chilling. But their next few games, Atlanta tonight, Memphis, okay, not a tough game. But then it's Minnesota, Houston, Memphis again, OKC, Lakers, Houston, Portland, Detroit. Is this getting any better anytime soon? I don't think so. I think this is over. And I think it's really, honestly, like disgraceful. Unless Chris Paul did some crazy things behind closed doors, I really don't see any rationale for sending him home. I don't believe that it was, other players that were annoyed with Chris Paul. Like maybe James Harden, maybe Zoo, I guess. But like all these other players, the vets, the young guys, do you think they're worried about Chris Paul right now? I think it's really just Ty Lue and maybe James Harden. So where we go from here, I don't know. Chris Paul, I don't think he's just going to sit on the bench or sit at home the rest of this year. I think maybe he gets bought out. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know what team would want Chris Paul. I'm not saying like no one, I genuinely don't know what team would want Chris Paul. I don't know what team would trade for a Kawhi Leonard if that comes up. James Harden, I've been pushing James Harden to Minnesota. I really want that to happen, but I think all that might be on the table very, very soon, and then it's gonna look very dumb because you didn't need to do this. If you blow it up, move on from Ty Lue, then there was absolutely no need to send home and embarrass a franchise legend, and I do think it will have a lasting mark on the franchise. And maybe that's an overreaction, but I do believe players are gonna remember this. They also might remember the Blake Griffin situation where there was this whole big show about making him the face of the franchise, gonna retire Clipper, had his picture up with all the luminaries and all that, right? You guys remember what I'm talking about? Then they turn around and trade him for Tobias Harris. And maybe this resonates with me a little bit more because I am from Southern California and I've seen the Clippers go from a joke to a great professional organization under Chris Paul. So maybe it's, that sticks with me a little bit more, but I think they're gonna go from Chris Paul with the way they're treating Chris Paul, the way they treated Blake Griffin, the aspiration stuff. They might be Doc draft picks going forward. I think the Clippers are about to return to joke status of a franchise very, very soon because they're not going to turn this around. They're going to hold on to Kawhi Leonard and James Harden probably to the point where they have no trade value. I mean, Kawhi already has no trade value, but James Harden's going to be expiring next year. They're not going to trade him and get any assets in return. They're probably going to give a top 5 pick to OKC this year, and that will go down as a joke of a trade, even though most people at the moment weren't against that trade. That's going to be part of the legacy of this team. That's going to be part of the legacy of Steve Ballmer. And again, maybe I'm overreacting, but the way they treated Chris Paul right now is going to be part of the legacy of the Clippers. You can't treat your franchise GOAT like that and it not be a referendum on your team. So that's what I think. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Please like, comment, subscribe. It will mean the world to me. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm out. Peace.